You're sitting by the window, 37,000 feet above the earth, somewhere between Hawaii and California. The clouds drift below you like lazy cotton balls, and the seatbelt sign is off. It's a routine commercial flight. Nothing out of the ordinary. Until the pilot makes an announcement. His voice is calm, but the words aren't. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We're experiencing an unexpected malfunction in the aircraft's vertical navigation system. Then the overhead lights begin to flicker. The cabin feels darker than it should. You look up. Sky, once blue, is deepening, fading, turning black. You glance around, a few nervous faces. Someone laughs it off, but you don't. Because outside your window, the clouds are no longer below you. They're beside you. The plane isn't cruising anymore. It's climbing. Fast. You feel it in your chest first, that light pressure pushing you back into your seat. Your flight isn't just off course, it's heading into space. Let's rewind a little. In normal flights, lift is created by the difference in pressure above and below the wings. But up here, that pressure is almost non-existent. Just a high climb, a sweep through the upper stratosphere, then back down. But somewhere along the way, an auto-throttle malfunction locked the jet into max climb mode. And unlike commercial jets, this aircraft didn't have the usual limitations. Something eerily similar happened on a high-altitude research. Test flight in the 1990s, it's the reason commercial planes today have a strict altitude ceiling of 45,000 feet. But this particular planelet, Scarlet Flight X, was a private experimental aircraft with a modified jet engine, capable of reaching extreme heights. This isn't science fiction. Originally, it was scheduled for a suborbital weather data mission, nothing fancy. At 70,000, the pilot lost most control over the rudders. Then came the real problem. At 55,000 feet, the plane had already doubled the altitude of Mount Everest. The air got so thin, the plane's lift, the invisible upward force that keeps planes flying, started to collapse. And yet the engines kept firing. So instead of leveling off, the plane kept going. You're still in your seat. The hum of the engine has turned into a high-pitched whine. The sky is black now, not dark blue-black, like space. Stars are visible in the middle of the day. There's no more turbulence, no more clouds, no more up or down. The horizon curves. You can actually see the Earth round, glowing faintly. Your phone has no signal. GPS fails. Cabin pressure begins to drop. You hear the sound of oxygen masks deploying, followed by the distant creaking of metal as the fuselage expands ever so slightly in the thinning air. The Concorde, one of the highest flying passenger planes ever, maxed out at 60,000 feet. You, to spy planes? You're now at 85,000 feet. Welcome to the mesosphere, the layer just below outer space. At this altitude, you're beyond where any commercial aircraft dares to go. It's a place called the Armstrong Line, about 63,000 feet and up. It's named after an Air Force physician. It's the point where water boils at body temperature. That means if you were exposed to the open air here, your saliva, the moisture in your eyes, even your blood would start to vaporize instantly, and you're above it. You might be wondering, why doesn't the plane just stall? It should. In fact, most aircraft lose all aerodynamic control at these altitudes. But Flight X is being pushed by something else, a powerful turbojet engine modified for near-space travel. It doesn't rely entirely on the surrounding oxygen like commercial engines do, and that's exactly what's kept it climbing. Right into danger. But there's a catch. As the engines continue pushing, the plane starts to fall apart. Not with an explosion, but with silence. The rivets on the wings begin to loosen. The seals on the cockpit start to crack. The temperature drops to minus 80 degrees Fahrenheit. A layer of frost builds on the inner windows. One by one, the plane systems fail. Suddenly the engines cut off. Not like a roller coaster drop, but real zero gravity. Like you've left Earth entirely. Floating in your seat, your arms light, your stomach turning, but not from motion. From the fear that there's no going back. At 96,000 feet, the aircraft begins to float just for a second. There's no more upward force, no more control. Then it drops. You feel weightless as the free fall begins. You're no longer flying. You're falling. But this isn't like anything you've ever felt. The engines are dead. There's no turbulence, no screaming passengers, no alarms. Just the surreal silence of space and the strange calm before gravity takes over. You've heard of zero gravity in astronaut training where everything floats for a few seconds. But this is different. This is real microgravity, and it feels like time just stopped. It's not simulated. It's not safe. The aluminum skin is frost-covered and flexing under pressure changes. The nose tilts slightly downward. Not too much, just enough to point earthward. And that's all gravity needs. From the outside, the aircraft is barely holding together. Its wings rattle. The descent begins. At first, it's slow. It's slow, most peaceful. At 82nd adds speed, the plane starts picking up momentum. Not by upward G-forces like during takeoff, but by raw acceleration. Yeah, you can feel the blood rushing from your brain to your legs. Your vision narrows. Tunnel vision. Your breath becomes shallow. You're turning into a human missile. The thin upper atmosphere offers no resistance. By the time it hits 60,000 feet, it's already falling at Mach 1.6 nearly, 1,200 miles per hour, and you. It's a strange place in physics when air can no longer flow smoothly around a surface, because it's traveling too fast. The emergency oxygen mask dangles in front of you, swaying violently. But somehow, miraculously, it holds. Basically, the plane is punching through the air faster than it can respond. You're pinned to your seat. Here's the science. The ailerons, those little flaps on the wings, start to flap uncontrollably. The fuselage vibrates. Tiny cracks appear along the cockpit window, and you're descending so fast that the aircraft's metal is heating up from friction. As the plane re-enters denser air, aerodynamic forces return fast. The wings begin to work again. But that's not always a good thing. Air slams against the control surfaces, which were never designed for re-entry speeds. You're now at 50,000 feet. That's high enough that commercial pilots still wear oxygen masks. You're burning the air, and the G-forces kick in. As the plane tries to stabilize from the fall, it hits a compressibility barrier. Suddenly, it feels like the aircraft has hit an invisible wall. You jolt forward in your seat. Loose items bounce around like popcorn. The pilot is fighting the yoke, but he might as well be wrestling a gorilla. The airframe groans under the pressure. The plane wants to flip, spin, break apart. You're now at 42,000 feet. Back in commercial airspace. If only barely. The problem? No one knows where you are. At 90,000 feet, your GPS failed. At 70,000, you left radar range. And at 60,000, your transponder, your digital location beacon froze and shut off. To air traffic control, your plane vanished 20 minutes ago. To the world, you're already gone. Inside the cockpit, the pilot is trying something desperate. He cuts power to all non-essential systems, reboots the navigation controls, switches to manual stabilizers. It's like trying to land a jumbo jet with a car steering wheel, blindfolded, during an earthquake. But one thing is working in your favor: glide dynamics. If the angle is just right, they can glide for miles without engines. See, high-altitude aircraft, even experimental ones, have one advantage. They fall like paper airplanes instead of bricks. It's long wings, low weight. That is, if they don't spiral. You're at 35,000 feet. The cabin temperature is returning to normal. Ice crystals on the window begin to melt. From this altitude, you can see the ocean dark, endless, terrifying. But also land, a faint coastline in the distance. The pilot yells to the crew, "We've got one chance. No go-rounds. This is it." Back in the cabin, passengers are frozen in place, half from fear, half from G-force. Someone sobs quietly. Someone else records with their phone. You wonder what the last thing you'll ever hear will be. But here's the twist. It's still fast, it's still dangerous, but it's not a crash, not yet. And worse, the designated runway is still 40 miles away. This isn't the end. The pilot stabilizes the wings. It gets control. Not full control, but enough. The aircraft is now descending in a controlled glide, just 15,000 feet above the ocean. There's one more problem: no landing gear. The electrical system is fried. The belly scrapes across the earth for hundreds of feet. But somehow, you survive and come back. So what does the pilot do? He aims for a dry lake bed in the Mojave Desert. 10,000 feet, the cabin's pressure returns, breathing becomes easier. Sand, rock, scrub, not ideal but better than water. 5,000 feet. You hear birds outside the window. Real birds. 1,000 feet. The desert looms below. And then, touchdown. Rough, violent. The plane skids. Sparks fly. The tail breaks, but the cabin holds. The nose gear crumples. When the dust settles, you sit in your seat silent, dazed alive. You look outside. Emergency crews are rushing in. You've just become one of the only people in history to accidentally leave Earth's atmosphere. You're on the ground now, alive, breathing, shaking. But your flight. It became the subject of global aviation investigations, military scrutiny, and even space agency interest. Because what happened that day wasn't just an accident, it was a glimpse into a terrifying possibility. A commercial aircraft can cross the boundary between sky and space, that with the wrong combination of altitude, speed, and system failure, just 13 seconds long, taken by a terrified passenger mid-fall. The video went viral in hours, with titles like, "The world first learned of Flight X from a grainy cell phone video." Did this plane enter space? The flight NASA couldn't explain. Aircraft re-entry? What? But what investigators uncovered was even stranger than the headlines. So what really happened? It began with a software glitch. Flight XS Avionics Systemit's digital brain was equipped with a test version of an autopilot algorithm, originally designed for high-altitude military reconnaissance drones. When the aircraft reached a routine cruising altitude of 38,000 feet, a rare data conflict caused the flight computer to switch modes, believing it was piloting a drone programmed to ascend to 90,000 feet for satellite mapping. This wouldn't normally be possible. Except Flight X's engines had been experimentally upgraded. Not for space, but for ultra-altitude performance in atmospheric research. The perfect storm. In fact, commercial jets are loaded with failsafes. Altitude limiters, throttle governors. Manual overrides autopilot engaged. Altitude limits ignored. Engines locked at max thrust. And because the pilot didn't immediately override it, the plane entered a runaway climb before anyone could stop it. But wait. Shouldn't safety protocols prevent this? In short, it wasn't supposed to have passengers. It wasn't supposed to fly that high. And it wasn't supposed to ever lose control. Absolutely. But Flight X wasn't entirely commercial. It was a hybrid platform, part research vessel, part private jet, leased temporarily for a government weather data collection mission. But it did. So how close did it actually get to space? Well, officially, the boundary of space is known as the Kármán line, about 100 kilometers, or 62 miles above sea level. Flight X reached an estimated 96,500 feet. That's 29 kilometers up. It's not space, but definitely the mesosphere, and well past where any commercial aircraft is rated to survive. Only specialized vehicles like the X-15 rocket plane, certain military aircraft, and suborbital spacecraft have ever gone higher end. Those were built for it. Your flight wasn't, and that's what scared scientists the most. Because here's the thing, Earth's atmosphere has no sharp edge. There's no blinking sign in the sky that says "Welcome to space." Instead, the air just thins until you're weightless, until control surfaces stop working, until aircraft become spacecraft, whether they're ready or not. Sort of aerial Bermuda Triangle, and you were right on the edge. So that region is known as near space. It's the place between 60,000 and 300,000 feet too high, 4 planes too low for satellites, and it's incredibly dangerous. After the incident, aviation experts launched a full investigation. One engineer described it as, flight software was overhauled, altitude restrictions were enforced more tightly, private high-altitude missions heavily regulated. The worst-case scenario we always dismissed it actually happened. Aviation authorities worldwide updated protocols for experimental hybrid aircraft. Even NASA got involved. Curious. How an on-orbital plane managed to touch mesosphere altitudes without burning up or breaking apart? The answer? Freak combination of light aircraft, weight, cold external temperatures, and a nearly perfect glide profile on descent. But here's what really fascinated scientists: the flight data. Because for the first time in history, a passenger aircraft with onboard sensors, recorders, and human occupants had unintentionally entered near-space conditions and made it back. They gathered air pressure data at 90,000 feet, wing vibration data during free fall real time, human physiological response to extreme altitude, structural response of commercial-grade fuselage in near vacuum. Some say you're the first tourist in space who didn't pay for a ticket. It was like a free lab test, no simulator required. Terrifying, yes, but valuable. And you? You're now part of aviation folklore. Some call you lucky. Some call you a survivor. But you know the truth. You didn't go to space. And what secrets still float in the quiet black between sky and space? You fell into it and barely made it back. Outro-style ending for your bright side video. So, what would happen if a commercial jet actually crossed the Kármán line? Could we build planes that fly passengers into orbit? Well, maybe you'll find out on your next flight. But for now, keep your seatbelt fastened. You never know where your plane might take you.